Hello, I'm Gideon Burton. I want to teach you about how to write killer thesis statements. Here's what my main claim is. Although there's a lot to do with writing, that's more than just writing a good thesis statement. You really need one. Alright, that's my bottom line. You can see it in more fancy words right there. Now let me tell you what I'm going to do in this little lecture. First of all, I'm going to take you to the thesis statement and ask, what does it do? What's its function within good writing? And then I'm going to give you a formula, a quick 5-step formula to generate your own thesis statements. I'll talk a little bit about how the thesis statement relates to outlining and writing your larger paper. And then I'm going to end with a series of examples showing you some mediocre thesis statements that I will revise. Along the way, I will outline for you 5 different types of claims that you can make. So that's what you can get out of this little instruction about killer thesis statements. So let's start with this. What exactly does a thesis statement do? Why do teachers get so unhappy if you don't have a good thesis statement, and how does it serve your writing? Well, your writing can be kind of jumbled, and a thesis statement keeps order. It's a way that you can keep direction, convince your readers that you do have a direction for what you're trying to argue, and that what you have to say will also be clear. If people complain about writing not being clear, it's often due to the fact that the thesis statement has not been well constructed. And also, it keeps clarity across many different levels, right? So not just in the first paragraph, but at every point in the writing, you always know where you're at. So whatever part of your writing you're at, it gives readers confidence that you'll keep them oriented and directed on a clear path until the entire picture is clear. Alright, I kind of had fun making that little presentation. Don't worry about it. The rest of it is not all crazy, change your orientation, freak you out kind of stuff. I just was having a little fun. Anyway, let's get back to killer thesis statements. Alright, now here's that formula I was talking about. It starts very simply by zooming in on and focusing on your topic. And of course the topic is where you explore. This stage you do a little bit of exploring and you gather your thoughts on the topic. It assumes that you've already had some sort of preliminary exposure to the ideas through reading and research, etc. The second step is you have to come up with a claim. This is the core of it, and this is where you take a stand on the topic and turn it into some kind of an issue. Third step, you must arrive at a rationale. This is often expressed as a because clause, where you give the main reason for your position. Fourth step, you come up with a qualification. Qualification is something that gives context or somehow acknowledges an opposing point of view. It often is begun with a word like despite or although, and you'll see examples. Alright, the fifth is simply to reorder and revise these. You won't present them in the same order in which you compose them. So you'll actually take that qualification which you wrote last and put it first, follow it by the claim, follow it by the rationale, and I'll show you that in more detail now. Okay, let's go back to step one. When you have a topic, you are going to spend time exploring it. If you're in a whatever course you may be part of, you're going to be doing some reading, so you're going to check your notes and things like that. You're going to discuss things, and maybe you discuss them online in a discussion forum, or you talk to people personally. You might have done some research on this topic, and of course you'll keep track of that somewhere. You might have a bibliography or other kinds of annotations that will remind you of what some of the key issues are with respect to your topic. I like to recommend to students that they also explore media, because oftentimes that's where you can find a contemporary spin on your topic. Even among kind of amateur things that you find online, you're not looking for authorities to support your point. You're looking for people who are bringing out the issues that are in play with the topic that is at issue. Another thing to think about in exploring your topic is to go through a series of questions. Where did my question things go? It was supposed to show up. Anyway, question sets include things like the journalists, who, what, where, when, why, and how, that kind of thing. But you might have question sets that pertain more to a specific field of study. So in literature, you're going to look for elements of form, plot, characters, setting, etc. In another field, you'd have another set of questions that you might apply. And they serve as a kind of paradigm, a heuristic, a way of exploring the topic. All right, so once you've done some of that exploring, you gather it together in what I call semi-organized notes. Oh, look, I had these going. Okay, isn't that nice? Okay, you can see it up close. All right, let's see if we have that last one. Question sets. Oh, there they are. Field-specific questions. Okay, I feel much better now. All right, on we go. You're going to gather that together in some kind of semi-organized fashion. It's kind of inchoate. It hasn't really come into being yet. What are you going to do with it? Here's just a very simple example. I'm going to work with this throughout the presentation. Let's say my topic is animal rights, and I've done some reading on this, maybe seen some YouTube videos, or maybe read a scholarly article or whatever, and the discussion brings up things like the role of PETA, the people that protect animals, and there's a discussion about our animal rights, like minority rights, and then there's issues of ethics. There's a lot of ideas that are surrounding the general topic of animal rights, and I've got to focus in on one of those and make it something that I'll make a claim about. Okay, so that leads to the claim. And this is, like I said, the heart of things. How do you arrive at a claim? This is the most crucial part. Everything else is secondary. A thesis statement is really a claim. The other parts just make it sound more solid. So how do you arrive at a good claim? First of all, ask yourself this question. Where is something at stake? Okay, look where people are getting upset about things, or where they're energized to take action in some way, or where in responding to a text do you feel as though an interpretation could swing based on an understanding of a given thing. Where is something at stake? And then you really should ask the question, well, why do I care? To me, this is important, because if you're going to write a paper, it's going to be a better paper if it's something that you believe in. And so that may be hard if it's just something that's assigned to you, but try to find some angle where you care about it. Where might it matter? And then, of course, you want to see why other people are showing interest in this, and hopefully your research and reading has exposed you to some of that. The last thing you should consider, and this might be the most helpful part, is what kind of claims could I actually make about this, right? Now, this has to do less with the topic you're discussing and more with knowing different types of claims in general. So that's what I'd like to review with you now. 5 different claim types. The first of these is a policy claim. That is characterized by some kind of statement like should or should not. And I'll show you examples here. The second is a definition claim. And that is characterized by a declaration of what something is or is not. A third type of claim is a comparison claim, where you say something is like or unlike something else. That's closely related to this other kind of claim, an evaluation claim, but that's where you have some kind of standard involved. And so you can say that something it meets a standard or fails to meet a standard, it's good or bad. This might be an ethical evaluation, it might be an aesthetic evaluation, but you're bringing in some kind of a standard and applying and saying how your topic lines up with that standard. Now, where's my other one? Oh, here we go. The last one is a causal claim, and that's basically you're claiming that something causes something, or it is a result of something else. Okay? Very useful. Policy claim, definition claim, comparison claim, evaluation claim, causal claim. All right, got those in your head? I'm going to give you a quiz. Which type of claim is this? Here's a reminder of all of them. So here's question number 1. Animal testing has not led to general disregard for life. Do. Write this down somewhere. Put a little letter down. Do. Okay, here's number 2. It's better for animals to be tested than for humans to die. Do. Which type of claim? What are you going to say it is? Number 3. Animals are not humans. Gee, what kind of claim is that? I'm scratching my chin. What kind of claim? Those are the 5 types up above and there they go. Okay, number 4. Suffering for animals is no different than suffering for humans. What do you think? Finally, number 5. Animals should not be given the same rights as humans. Which type of claim could that be? Could it be... All right, I hope you've committed yourself. All right, are you ready? Put down your pencil. You've committed yourself. All right, here are the answers. Number 1, animal testing has not led to general disregard for life. Led to, right? Influenced, caused, brought about. That is a causal claim. Number 2, it's better for animals to be tested than for humans to die. Better, right? Immediately that suggests there's some standard that's been involved there. Therefore, this is an evaluation claim. That's right. Very good. Animals are not humans. Which one of these claim types had to do with saying what things are or are not? That would be definition claim. Number 4, suffering for animals is no different than suffering for humans. Now, very clearly you're making a comparison here, hence a comparison claim. Number 5, animals should not be given the same rights as humans. That should just flash out to you and say, hey, I'm looking at a policy claim. That's right. Now, you may not have gotten all of these exactly right because I can see some confusion, especially between the evaluation claim and the comparison claim. Don't worry too much about that. It's not as though people that are reading your paper are going to hold you to any one of these. And frankly, they are often combined with one another. This is more a way of simply getting you to a solid and interesting claim. It's not all about defining the types of claims. Just knowing the types just helps you get there. So hopefully you've got these 5 types in your mind right now. Okay, let's go on to the next step. We've had the topic, and then we've gone to the making the claim, the central thing. Now we're going to create a because clause giving the main reason for our position. So you might just ask yourself, okay, I've decided on a certain claim, and I'm thinking about the various reasons why I'm going to pursue that claim, why I think it's true or right. Which one of those is most central? What's the biggest one? And let me show you an example of that. So if I'm going to go with that policy claim of animals should not be given the same rights as humans, well, why? What are the possible reasons? Okay, I can think this through. Well, because humans and animals are fundamentally different from each other. Okay, that's pretty good. Since giving animal rights would cause social mayhem. Okay, that's a possible reason. Because this could erode civil rights for humans. Now, if you were noticing, you can see that within these because clauses, they're actually embedded claims, right? So you have these kind of rationales that are supporting claims for your central claim. Let's just go back and look at these and see which type they are. Because humans and animals are fundamentally different from each other, that would either be a definition claim or a comparison claim, wouldn't it? The next one, since giving animal rights would cause social mayhem, that's a causal claim. It says it right there, would cause something. And the last one's also a causal claim because this could erode civil rights for humans. All right, so I think these through, and finally I'm going to go with number 1 because humans and animals are fundamentally different from each other. Okay, next step. I'm going to go on to the qualification. Remember, this is some kind of statement. It's introductory in nature, giving a context or acknowledging an opposing point of view. And so here are some questions you can ask to think about that. What sets the scene, right? I mean, oftentimes if students have been immersed in a textbook or some readings, they're familiar with some scene, a social scene, scientific scene, literary scene, what have you, that the readers may not be. So you kind of have to introduce them. Another thing to think about is, well, what's the main counter-argument? You're going to sound a lot more reasonable if you can introduce your claim by acknowledging the best of the counterclaims that are out there. Right? And the effect of this is showing that you're informed, and really this is part of it. This part of the thesis statement is helping to build your credibility, what we call your ethos, the appeal of the author, and that is always strengthened if you demonstrate that you're thorough, that you're informed, and Also, if you seem to have a tone that's respectful, that also helps a lot. So what will show that I'm fair about this topic, right? So if you get too strong in your claim, people could think that you're a whack job and not take your claim seriously. Having a good qualifying statement reassures people that you can approach this rationally. Okay? So here's some possible qualification statements I can use for the example that I was setting up. All right? Although some claim that all life is equally sacred, although animals deserve respect, even if animals and humans share biological traits, right? You notice the language. I'm using although, even if. I might have used the word despite. Those are just kind of cue words to launch a qualification. You can see that in each of these, it's bringing in the issues, right? So if I'm going to talk about animal rights, there are going to be some people who are going to talk about life being sacred no matter what kind of creature you are. So I'm going to acknowledge that. I'm going to bring that up and, say, respect it, that there are a lot of people who think this way. And so on. Okay, let's go on now. The fifth thing is to reorder and revise. And this means that you're taking the qualification and the claim and the rationale and you're putting them all together. So let me show you how I've done that. Although animals should be treated with respect, they should not be given the same rights as humans because they're fundamentally different from humans. Now, does that sound like a good claim to you? It should, because it is a good, solid claim. It's very clear. The claim is, the central part of that is very clear that it should not be given the same rights as humans. It's a policy claim. It's introduced showing, it's acknowledging there needs to be respect for life, for animal life. And then there's that rationale that is the last phrase there. Okay, so there it is. 5 steps that end up with 3 parts, and the order ends up being qualification, claim, rationale. That is your formula for how to write a good thesis statement. Now, it is not enough for your statement, your thesis statement, to be clear. It is not enough for it to be accurate. It's not enough for it to be specific. Those are all crucial traits, but they don't get you all the way there. So I want to give you a kind of test for whether or not you have a good thesis statement. Okay, a good thesis statement is specific. That's good. But it needs to go beyond the known or the obvious, right? You can be very specific, but state something really obvious, and that's not good enough. Clarity is not persuasive. You have to do something beyond that. And I find the best test is, will this divide an educated audience? Now, sometimes that may require, the assumption that there's an audience that has some basic familiarity with your topic. If they do, though, would this divide them? Would they have something to talk about? Would you be provoking discussion by way of this claim and not simply reiterating things that they already know? And part of this is suggesting that there are real stakes. Remember earlier on when I was saying how do you brainstorm about writing a good claim, and one of the key questions is, what's at stake here? Ask that question again at the end of this whole thing. Does this show that there are real stakes involved? And one way I like to think about this is, what if people didn't believe my claim? How would the world go wrong? I know that sounds a little silly, but what could be the negative consequences if people did not understand what I'm trying to say? And if there aren't any such things, you got to go back and strengthen it, because you've got to believe that somehow you're clarifying something that will help people see the world in a better way, because there really are things at stake here. Okay. And finally, good quality for a thesis statement is that it will prepare readers for what's to come. In other words, the thesis can be a kind of outline. So if you just look at numbers 2, 3, and 4 on my outline right there, you can see that they line up perfectly with the qualification, the claim, and the rationale. Right? So in my paper as a whole, I might have some introductory paragraph, but then which could include my thesis statement. But then the next section of my paper, really the first paragraph of the body of my paper, I would begin talking about the thing that I mentioned in my qualification. But I'd go on about it and say, okay, this is why animals deserve respect, and when people say such and such, and here's an authority who believes this, blah, blah, blah. But then I would come back to my claim and say, well, despite that, we still must not give animals the same rights as humans, and then that leads me really into the main body of my paper where I'm going to establish that fact that there's a fundamental difference between humans and animals. Wrap it up with a conclusion. So you can see the thesis as being a microcosm of your paper as a whole. Now I want to take you to some example thesis statements and look at some that are bad and show you how that could be improved. Okay, let's take this one. Chaucer's Wife of Bath from the Canterbury Tales demonstrates feminism. Okay? Now, first of all, that is true. I don't know if you know about that particular tale from the Canterbury Tales. It certainly demonstrates feminism, but that's not that specific. I mean, feminism is kind of a broad topic, and it's not a new idea. How could we fix that? All right? How about this? Although Chaucer's Wife of Bath discusses gender issues, it is the form in which she frames her tale that says most about the state of medieval women. Can you tell that that's improved? It invites close analysis, okay? Because it essentially is saying that there's this form and content issue, and you're going to have to get in there and compare the two and bring in the historical context in order to answer this claim. So if your thesis statement invites people into the topic in such a way that they have to get into the nitty-gritty to figure things out, you've probably got a good thesis statement. Let's take another example. Mediocre. Mallory's Morte Arthur is inaccurate about the real King Arthur. Okay, I don't know if you know about Morte Arthur. It's the sort of the first codification or standard version of the King Arthur legend. Okay, well, even if this is true, and it is true, it's hardly surprising. I mean, it's coming out of legend. It's got all these ridiculous things. There's not a lot of verisimilitude to the story. You're not going to surprise anyone by saying, hey, you know what? This is not true about the real Arthur. Okay? You've got to do better than that. Okay? You can't. So try this one out. The historical inconsistencies in Mallory's Morte Arthur suggest that Welsh and Norman influences each shaped the famous King Arthur legend very differently. All right, can you see again how this is highly specific and it invites a nuanced analysis? Right? You're going to have to get into these. The question in the reader's mind is, well, what are the Welsh and Norman influences? And that's good. You want to get them curious, and you're going to satisfy that curiosity in your paper. Okay, let's try another example. Mediocre one. Both Christian and pagan elements can be found in Beowulf. Now, if you've never read Beowulf, you wouldn't have any read on this, but anyone who's had any exposure to Beowulf, they're going to know that this is pretty patently obvious. So you got to go beyond the obvious. How can you do that? Let's try this. Those themes most central to Beowulf are most at odds with Christianity, despite the presence of certain explicit Christian elements in the poem. Wow. Okay, so I'm setting up a kind of paradox here. Yeah, I'm taking Christian and pagan, but I'm not just saying they both exist there. I'm saying they have this complicated relationship. All right? So this claim suggests a clear pattern for the coming paper. Oh yeah, this is an example of how it kind of outlines things. Key themes will be identified and shown to be inconsistent with Christian elements, which we can also expect to be identified. One other thing I'd like to point out about this particular one is that the although clause, which in this case is a despite clause, is delayed. It's put after, right? And also notice that there is no because clause. All right. Now, is this a crummy thesis? No. You don't have to be married to the order in which I've said things. It's just going to be a little more natural to start with a qualification of some kind, an although clause. It'll be a bit more natural to have a rationale come at the end, but you actually don't need to have the qualification or the rationale in order to have a thesis statement. All that really matters is the claim. And it may be that you introduce your rationale or your main reasons later on. Okay? So I'm not trying to set up too rigid of a formula here. I gave you a formula because the formula works, but after you've used it for a while, you'll start to realize, you know, that you can play with it. Okay, let's try one more. The Tempest proves that Shakespeare was a genius. Man, I hate any paper that says Shakespeare is a genius. Why? because it's not like we were wondering, really. I mean, people sit around going, I don't know, was he a moron? Was he just kind of, no, I don't know, I think he was pretty smart. Everybody knows he was a genius, so don't tell us that, okay? It's a crummy thesis. Let's improve it. While many have found a critique of colonialism in The Tempest, Shakespeare's play actually reinforces contemporary attitudes in support of colonial practices. Whoa, now this makes me slow down. I mean, it's obviously a lot more specific. Okay, other people have found a critique of colonialism in The Tempest. All right? And I'm saying that this play doesn't critique colonialism, but actually reinforces colonial practices. Whoa! Now, I'm telling you, anyone who's read Shakespeare, scholarship, studied The Tempest at all, it's kind of a given that it's a critique of colonialism. So I am going to make an engaging claim if I will challenge a commonly held assumption. Now, this doesn't mean that every thesis statement you write needs to be contrary and you need to swim upstream to everything, but consider it as a rhetorical opportunity. And oftentimes, if you're willing to go back and reconsider what people have taken for granted, you'll find a reason why it shouldn't have been taken for granted, and there's something more that's there. And that's where you'll have an edge. That's where you'll make a contribution. That's where you'll have a killer thesis statement. Okay, so that about wraps it up. It's true that you need more than just instruction in writing a thesis statement to have good writing, but if you get that central claim pegged, everything else has a good chance of working out. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and go and write a good killer thesis statement. Thanks.